Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel here. Today we are returning to an old series that I haven't done in a couple months that I want to get back to. It's my build guide series, so I'm pretty excited to get back to it. And we are getting right into it with this one, which is sort of like a mid-range 25,000 Rand Evetech build. And what this one is sort of like it's a gaming PC, obviously, but this is also a workstation PC. So this could play games, but it could also be useful for 3D editing or software development or video game development or whatever it is that you would want to do with this. And I'm going to get right into it and not waste too much time here. So it is the festive holidays. We do have a lot of discounts, and of course a lot of discounts on Evetech also. And with that said, a lot of these prices are discounted, but I just take the prices as they are. I don't consider specials when making these lists. So for this one, we're going to get right into it, and I have selected a upgrade bundle, upgrade kit for this computer. And the reason for that is you save a lot of money when you do this because you bundle everything together, and then that bundle costs less than purchasing those items individually. And so this bundle is quite a nice one. This is actually the same CPU that I'm using, and the same RAM that I'm using. I just have more of it. So we are going with the AMD Ryzen 7 5700X. Now this CPU is a 8-core CPU. I believe it is also a 16-thread CPU. I'm not 100% sure on that, but you can see the performance here on the Geekbench that they did compared to a 11900K, which is a Core i9 CPU from the 11th gen of Intel. The Ryzen 7 gets pretty close, which is impressive for coming up against such a strong CPU. And when you compare it to a 12600K Core i5, which is a 12th gen Intel CPU, it's right around the same performance as well. The 12th gen CPU is a little bit better, but it's also a lot more expensive. So I think the 5700X is a very good choice. It has a 36 megabyte cache, which is a really big cache. And I can attest to the performance of the CPU because I'm using it myself and have done so for a year now. So I think it's a good CPU. I think for mid-range development gaming, it will do the job just fine. Moving on to the motherboard, we have gone with the MSI B450M-A Pro. So this isn't the best motherboard in the world, but when you're going with low or mid-range builds, that doesn't matter too much. You want to make sure you have some decent VRM protection and stuff like that, but as long as you have the support for the socket that you are going with, that's really all you need. This is a cheaper motherboard, so it only has 2 DIMM slots and only has one NVMe slot from what I can tell, and 2 SATAs. So you will be very limited in what you can connect to this. So just make sure that if you do want to hook up a bunch of hard drives to it, make sure that the capacity limitations are there. So you have these 2 SATAs and then you have 2 more at the bottom. So not too much to say there. It is a cheap motherboard, but for the purposes of this gaming computer it will be fine. And that is because we are going with 16 gigs of 3600 megahertz DDR4 Vengeance RAM, which is this RAM. And this RAM is quite nice. I do use this myself. Mine is higher speed, but this RAM is nice because it has that RGB diffused lighting, which is customizable from within the IQ software. So you can basically choose a bunch of patterns for the colors that you like, the way that they behave. It's very customizable. So if you're someone that cares about RGB, this will be right up your alley. And then as a bonus for this bundle, we also get a CPU cooler, which is a a cooler, deep cool LS520 premium CPU liquid cooler. So this is an AIO, and this will do the job just fine. This is very similar to what I have, which is also a deep cool AIO. This is basically just a newer version of mine. So that's it for the upgrade kit for the CPU cooler, motherboard and RAM. And with that said, let's move on to the GPU. Of course, this is a gaming system, and so for a mid-range gaming PC, you'll need a mid-range gaming graphics card. Now, I would say this is a little bit above mid-range. This is teetering on the high end, and this is going to be an excellent graphics card for gaming. AMD have really come out swinging the last few years, and they've really produced some good stuff. I've always been a big fan, even though I've never owned one, I've always been a big fan of these XFX designs, and I think it just looks absolutely fantastic. Now, this card does have 12 gigs of GDDR6 VRAM, so you'll have no problem cranking up the texture settings to any game. And I've not used a card like this, but you can see some of the estimated performance here at 2K 1440p, and at max settings it is fantastic. I mean, 100 FPS on Cyberpunk. Of course, this does not include ray tracing because AMD cards don't ray trace. 105 on Red Dead Redemption 2, 120 on Far Cry 6, and this is at 2K maximum graphics. So it is a really good card, and I think for gaming this is more than adequate for what anyone would really need. Seeing this made me realize that our power supply isn't going to work, but I'll just change that out in a second. Doesn't really make too much of a difference because we are under budget. Okay, so that's it for the graphics card. Let's do that power supply then. Let's move on to that. So this is what I had selected, but this is only a 600 watt unit, and we will need to select something that is a little bit more performant and has a bit higher power capacity. So I would probably, for this build, I would probably avoid Gumdias just because they are a little bit of an unknown. Not an unknown, but they aren't the highest quality. Your deep cool Antex are probably going to be a little bit better. So, but they are a lot more expensive too. So this Gumdias power supply has a 80 watt bronze rating. I think this will be okay. This does look, I don't know who their manufacturer is, but this does look like a standard power supply. So it's not modular or anything, but it does not look bad at all. So, okay, so we're going to go with this. This is a 850 watt 80 plus bronze unit, and this is just a standard Gumdias power supply. So not too much to say there, but if you are thinking about purchasing a similar PC, I would probably spend an extra 1,000 Rand and just go for a Antec or Corsair unit if I were you. Okay, with that said, let's move on to the chosen SSD. Now, I could have gone with a NVMe, but you do pay a premium for that, and for a system like this, I think it makes sense to have, well, you need an SSD at least, but an SSD like this makes sense because we are restricted in terms of size, and you can always add a NVMe onto it later on. And if you do have the budget, I would recommend going with this and an NVMe, and then probably using the NVMe as your Windows drive. Now this is only a 512 gig, which is okay for most gaming systems. It depends on what you play, but if you can push for a terabyte SSD or NVMe, that is what I would recommend. So this could be anywhere from 500 to 2,000 Rand, depending on your own needs in this situation. Then, this is just a special page. We are moving on to the chassis. I've gone with the Antec AX51. Now, in terms of chassis, you can really just go for what you like. I just choose things that look cool and have good special. it doesn't really matter too much now. It's just make sure that the chassis fits your motherboard size and is something that you like. And this one, I do feel like it looks quite nice. For a build like this, if I were building this computer and I was going to use it for gaming, I would probably put it by my TV, my entertainment unit, because it would probably just be a gaming PC that I would just use remotes for. So yeah, it just really depends on what you like. It's sort of a subjective thing. So this is something that you can consider. But I do find Antec make a lot of good budget cases, and they are readily available in South Africa. Almost each gaming oriented store that I have been to has a series of Antec cases. And this one does have a button for LEDs, so this is not a bad choice. I do think this is a nice looking case, and with the AIO that comes bundled, it'll fill up quite nicely. So yeah, and I think the graphics card will look really nice in here as well, because it's sort of like the same sort of black and grey silver aesthetic. So yeah, so this is an option, but for cases you can really just go with what you want. You don't have to overthink it too much. Okay, so with that said, let's tally everything, see what the total comes up to, and see what our total price is. I think I think this will make for a fantastic gaming system, and it's going to be interesting to see what it costs. Okay, stay with me. Okay, so here we have our cart, and this is coming up to a total of 22,149 Rand 75 cents. Now, when you pay with a debit card, it would be 21,095 cents, but I'm going to use this price because this is the normal price, so to say. Just because they have different payment methods and different prices for them, I'm just going to go with the higher one because that is the actual price, so to say. So it comes up to 21,000 Rand, which, 22,000 Rand, which is, consider this. I bought a PC last year that is the same CPU. It has more RAM. It had a bigger SSD, better power supply, better chassis, but a worse graphics card. It has the 3070, which isn't much worse. And that came up to 28,000 Rand. So in terms of performance, this one might have lower quality parts in terms of the actual parts, like the power supply, the chassis, the hard drive, whatever. But in terms of performance, this is going to outperform my computer, and my computer was 6,000 Rand more. So that just shows you that every year gaming does get a little bit more affordable, if you think about it this way. Now, I do have an NVIDIA card, and this is an AMD card, but I do think this is a better card than the 3070, even if it is just slightly better. So I think that it's a lot of money, obviously. I mean, this is around $1,500. 22,000 Rand is a lot of money. For most people, that's a month's salary here in South Africa. So yeah, I do think it's not cheap, but I do think it's a good PC. In terms of gaming performance, you would play your games on, if you have the screen for it, not QHD, but 2K, 1440p, and you can play everything on maximum without using any down upscaling technology. So it's an impressive. It will make for an impressive PC, and it will outperform any console that's available. That's for sure. So, but it also costs almost twice as much as any console. So that is to be expected. But if you're someone that wants to get into some serious gaming, and someone that does maybe have some workflow productivity stuff that needs to be done, this is something that I would consider. So with that said, let's move on to the gaming performance, and let's see how this PC would actually do. Okay, let's do it. Okay, getting into the theoretical benchmarks, and this was taken off of a random YouTube channel that I found. These benchmarks are sort of like what we would be able to get with this PC. But do keep in mind that I wasn't able to find any benchmarks with the exact CPU that we are using in this PC. So the CPU that is being used is the 7700X, which is the next generation version of the same CPU that we have selected. So do keep in mind there is a little bit of a difference there, but it won't make too much of a difference. So getting into the first one here, as you can see from the beautiful interface that this person has put on their video, I'll make sure to link the video in my description so that you can go check it out if you want to see these benchmarks in action. I forget the person's name right now, but I will put it on the screen so you can go check it out. And this is Assassin's Creed Mirage. This is running on 2K, 1440p high settings. And the FPS in this frame is 96, which is amazing. It's a really good FPS. It's more than playable. Getting close to a high refresh rate even. And as you can see, the average FPS is 109, which is fantastic. So you can even play this on a 1440p high refresh rate, 1440 refresh rate screen as well. So this is a fantastic result, and this is of course a very modern game. All of the tests that I have selected for this video are modern games, because you know there's no point in showing you esports titles for this, because we all know that this card will dominate esports titles. There's no real, it's going to max out your screen's refresh rate for most esports titles. So I'm just going to show you AAA titles. So and one esports title, which is the next one, Counter-Strike 2. Now this is what I mean, 272 FPS, and the average is 263. So unless you're gaming on a 500 hertz display, there's no need to get a graphics card like this. A 3060 is, in my opinion, where you should top out if you just want to play games like these, because it's going to get you above 150 FPS consistently. So this card is overkill for this game, but as you can see, it runs really well, coming in at just under 300 FPS. Next up, we have Cyberpunk 2077, and this is probably the most difficult to run at maximum settings game on the list. So this is no ray tracing, 1440p high settings, and this averages 80 FPS, and this shot is 74 FPS. So this remains one of the most difficult games to max out, but this is a good result. Not exactly a high refresh rate, but above 60 FPS result, so pretty smooth playable result for 1440p. Next up we have the Dead Space remake. This is again quite a graphically intense game, and this is running at 79 FPS in this frame and 82 FPS overall average, with a 1% low of 56. So that 1% low is important. If we go back to Cyberpunk, you'll see it's a little bit higher, coming in at 70. Now your graphics card does have a big impact on that, but your CPU also makes an impact. So consider that with the CPU we are actually looking at for this, you will have a little bit more of a performance hit, and subtract a few FPS for each bench. But still, this is a good result, and this is a slow game, so it's not like you need to be quick scoping or anything like that. So I think getting around 80 FPS is more than respectable for the maximum settings at 1440p for the Dead Space remake. Then we have A Plague Tale Requiem, 1440p high settings. This, I recently just finished this game. What an amazing game. Really good story as well, and probably the most beautiful game I've ever played. This is coming in at 89 FPS on this shot, 84 average, with a 1% low of 70. Again, this is a slower, more cinematic style game, and this is also a game that is, you know, you don't need high refresh rate for, so Averaging 85, 84 is more than acceptable. And then I think the last one is Remnant 2, coming in at 72 FPS for this shot specifically. This is epic settings at 1440p, and this is averaging 78 FPS. 1% low of 63 and 72 in this shot. So again, you can aim for around 60 to 100 FPS for modern 2023 AAA games at maximum settings, which is fantastic. It's a fantastic result. I don't think you should plan to use ray tracing, especially not on this AMD card, but it is an option if you are willing to turn down the settings a bit. And I think, yeah, this is the last one. We are coming in with Warzone 2. I stopped playing after Warzone 1 just because it took too much time, but Warzone 2 is still pretty popular. I think Warzone 3 just came out, so this is 122 FPS in this shot. This is running at maximum extreme graphics, 1440p. And this is averaging 141, which is right around that high refresh rate average, which is perfect for this. And 1% low is a little bit low, coming in at 66, but you won't feel it too much. So this is another fantastic result. So let's take all of this, take the pricing, everything, and let's talk about it in the outro. Stay with me. Okay, so there you have it. I think the PC that we built will perform admirably in any game that you throw at it, getting above 80 to 100 FPS in all titles at maximum settings. No ray tracing though. At 1440p. So if you are someone that just plans to play on HD, I would say you don't really need a card like this. But if you do go with this one, you can aim to get above 100 frames consistently on each game you play at maximum settings, and you can even throw ray tracing in there as well. So this PC, I think, is perfect for a modern gamer. If there are specific limitations to know about, things like the NVENC encoder, which is a NVIDIA encoder, which is a lot better than the one AMD has. It works better. It has better quality. It's a better bit rate, and it's overall just a better experience to use. But if you're not a content creator, if you're not a someone that plays games on stream or whatever it is, if you just want to play games and have fun and maybe make a console equivalent PC, well, console destroyer PC, but I just mean something that you can play with your friends on, this will be a very good PC to build. But in terms of value, I do think there are cheaper PCs that you can build that will come close to this, that I would probably go with instead. Or if you want to go the next step, going for the 7800 XT, which is a 16 gig VRAM card, and has considerably better performance at a not much higher price. That is probably what I would do as well. So there is a use case for a PC like this, and I think that use case is gaming. You can also obviously use this as a workhorse PC, but in that case I would go with a 3070 or 4070 if I wanted to build something for workflow reasons. So if you're a gamer, you just want to play games, you might consider this. If not, you should probably look elsewhere. But sorry, I got a phone call. So just to finish up what I was saying, if you're someone that just wants to play games at pretty high refresh rate frames and good frame times, with pretty low 1% lows, or I mean pretty high 1% lows, smooth experience overall, then you should consider a PC like this. If you're someone that wants to instead do productivity work, so to say, on your computer, I would consider something else. So there's a use case for this, but it's not as broad as you would think, I think. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about it. I will put the links in the description if you want to check out any of the parts, and I will give credit to the person that made the benchmarks, the YouTube channel for that. So yeah, I think there's a lot to consider, but to be honest, I think there are better builds out there. So with that said, thanks for watching. I hope to see you in the next one, And I do plan to be making a few more of these build guides in the coming days and weeks. So stay with me, and I hope to see you in the next one. Cheers.